Tonight, Kamala Harris announces her running mate, and the campaign trail heats up. The latest on the 2024 race for the White House. Plus,
stay alert, stay tuned, and stay safe.
Tropical storm Debbie tears through the southeast. Residents brace for unprecedented rain and powerful winds. And
most of Israel right now is anxiously awaiting whether or not there will be an attack.
As Hezbollah launches drones at Israel, the region waits for a direct attack from Iran. All this and much more tonight on Faith Nation. Vice President Kamala Harris officially chooses her running mate to complete the 2024 Democrat White House ticket. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation from CBN's headquarters in Virginia Beach. I'm Wendy Griffith. Well, after meeting one-on-one with her top three picks over the weekend, we now know Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will join Vice President Kamala Harris in a very tight race. CBN Washington correspondent Michelle London joins us now with more on this candidate who is relatively unknown on the national stage. Michelle.
Wendy, good evening. In introducing Walz, phrases such as hunter and small-town Midwesterner are being used to describe Harris's new VP pick. The Minnesota governor will join her tonight in Philadelphia for stop one of a busy swing state tour for the Democratic duo. Many tonight are wondering just who is Tim Walz? The 60-year-old brings a military background to the ticket, serving with the National Guard for 24 years. A Nebraska native, he's often seen wearing an Army jacket and T-shirt, which Democrats hope will speak directly to the working-class rural American voters. Walz will also appeal to party's progressive wing, which support Harris's national push on abortion and reproductive rights. The Minnesota governor recently helped pass a measure ensuring the state's existing protections for abortion remain in place regardless of who sits on future courts. Meanwhile, Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance is also in Philadelphia today, and he gave his reaction to his likely competition.
Tim Walz's record is a joke. He's been one of the most far-left radicals in the entire United States government at any level. But I think that what Tim Walz's selection says is that Kamala Harris has bent the knee to the far left of her party, which is what she always does.
Now, Vance adds he'll wait until Walz is actually chosen as the Democratic vice presidential nominee before agreeing to a debate. Wendy.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it. CBN's chief political analyst David Brody joins us now for a closer look at the new VP candidate. David, what do you make of Harris choosing Walz over the other candidates?
Well, it makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, this is a left-leaning. I didn't say far left. There's a far left to the party, but it's left-leaning for sure. It's been progressive for quite a long time. And so Kamala Harris, a progressive. Tim Walz, a progressive. You put them together, and there you go. Make America progressive again, I guess, is kind of the slogan. Maybe not, actually. But the point is that it does make sense. But the problem here for Kamala Harris is that she's already has or at least the Trump campaign is trying to paint her as this major ultra-liberal. And she definitely has a record to show that. By picking Walz, that's just going to reinforce the fact that not only is she liberal, but her running mate is liberal, and they're looking to change America in a way many Americans may not want it to go. So I think there are problems ahead for sure, and that's the way the Trump narrative is going to go.
David, do you believe the desire to appeal to the party's Arab American or pro-Palestinian supporters led to Walz being chosen over Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania?
Well, there's no doubt that was part of it. Look, this Shapiro was going to have some problems with the far left. And I think, in essence, what this is about is that Democrats didn't want the headache. You know, Democrats had just been through enough, a couple of months of craziness with the whole Joe Biden situation post-debate. The last thing they need is more divisiveness. And Shapiro would have been a divisive pick inside the party. There are a lot of upsides to picking Shapiro, but there was that far-left anti-Semitic protester crowd, and it may be small in the Democrat Party, but it is boisterous, and they could have made a real ruckus at the convention, and that's not what Kamala Harris needs right now. What they need is kind of a glide path. They want it smooth sailing. Tim Walz is more of the smooth sailing pick, at least for now, because get ready, the Trump train, so to speak, is coming after them big time.
Well, last year, Walz signed a bill that guaranteed Minnesotans have a quote, fundamental right to abortion. How might this progressive stance resonate with voters, especially those more moderate on the issue?
Well, that's the key here, the more moderate voters. It's going to play great with the far left and those left-leaning Democrats. That's fine. Abortion is going to be key for them. So the key will be for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to appeal to them and get the base out. But how it plays in the middle is going to be tough. And there's also new reporting today that during Tim Walz's reign as governor, or time as governor, I should say, there were 5 babies born alive. You know, they actually had to keep records. Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, keeps records on babies born alive. There were 5 during his term, all not giving life-affirming care. And then he went ahead and tried to, in essence, put restrictions on life-affirming care going forward. So look, here's the problem. If I can just, I know we have limited time, but here's the problem and what the Democrats face. Tim Walz has a major liberal record. It is off the charts liberal. But he kind of looks like a MAGA guy, you know, put a cap on him. He's got a hunting, you know, he got the T-shirt, got the hunting gear. I mean, he kind of looks MAGA. So style versus substance, I think that's the contour going forward.
Wow, interesting. Well, Harris and Walz will campaign together in key battleground states this week. J.D. Vance also planning a tour of those states. What kind of approach do you expect to hear from both sides going forward?
Well, it's going to be appealing to the base on both sides. This has become, and it usually always is, but it definitely is for sure, a base election. It's all about momentum. Harris and Walz are playing to their Democrat left-leaning base. That's why Walz was picked. J.D. Vance was picked because he helps Trump reinforce the white, working, blue-collar crowd, Democrats and independents included in that. That's who they're trying to get. So both sides are playing to the base. The question is which base gets out in November. That will be the deciding factor.
All right, David Brody, thanks so much. We always appreciate it.
Thanks, Wendy.
Well, while Democrats make their stance on abortion clear, Republicans are wrestling with the issue. The new GOP platform drops the push for a federal abortion ban for the first time in 40 years, a major change that reflects former President Trump's position. The shift has angered some pro-life groups who say the party isn't doing enough to protect the unborn and is weakening its stance on a core issue. The Faith Family Freedom Fund, led by Tony Perkins, is launching a new campaign to raise awareness about the shift and who they believe is responsible. And with that, let's bring in Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council. Tony, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Wendy.
Senator Marsha Blackburn is the chair of the GOP's platform committee. What role do you believe she played in weakening the Republican Party's traditionally pro-life stance?
Well, Wendy, I think she led the effort as the chair of the platform committee. I've been on the platform committee going back, I think, 4 or 5 conventions. This is the only time that the convention, the platform, the delegates, 112, 2 from each state and territory, didn't have an opportunity to even read it, debate it, or amend it. It was just pushed through. And it not only weakens the party's stance on life, removing the call for a constitutional amendment, a human life amendment, it removes the call to apply the 14th Amendment to the unborn, but it also removes the definition of marriage. It takes out the Second Amendment. It removes a strong stand for Israel. So it's a very, very weak platform. And Marsha Blackburn is the one who forced it through.
Tony, what do you think is motivating this shift? Do you think some Republicans are saying, well, we got to win that White House. We got to do what we can to get in that place. Otherwise, everything could go wrong on the abortion issue.
Well, I think that might be part of it, but when you look at the totality of the platform, a lot of substance was removed. And I think you're absolutely right, Wendy, that there are some post 2022 that think abortion is a liability. But as you just heard from David Brody, this is going to be a base election. And when you have the Democrats, and Walz has a liberal record, extreme record on abortion, just like Kamala Harris. Well, if they're making this one of their top issues and the Republican response to it is crickets, well, it's not going to motivate the base. And this is where I think this is going to hurt the Republicans. If they're not willing to talk about the sanctity of human life and why it should be protected in every zip code, that our support for life as a party does not stop at the boundary of a state, then if we can't do that, then we've lost our way. And quite frankly, Wendy, I think the Republicans are going to lose a lot of support from pro-life voters who actually came into the Republican Party because of this issue.
Big issue for sure. Well, what is the Faith Family Freedom Fund doing to try to strengthen the GOP's abortion platform?
Well, with Marsha Blackburn leading this effort as the chairman of the platform, removing life, the definition of marriage, and not even allowing discussion on it, this was unprecedented. And so we want her constituents in the state of Tennessee to ask her why. Why is she jettisoning the Second Amendment? Why is she weakening the party's stand on life and marriage? Because if Republicans abandon these fundamental issues that are principal issues, are defining issues, then you're going to see a lot of people that, I mean, they're not going to vote for Harris and Walz, but they're not going to work for Republicans either, because they've worked for decades for the Republican Party to advance those candidates because of those core value issues. And so I think Marsha's constituents need to ask her why. Why did she lead this effort to turn the GOP away from these core principle, conservative, and I would add biblical issues?
Tony Perkins, we appreciate your insights. Thanks for being on the program.
Thank you, Wendy.
In other news, global markets recovered some losses today after recession fears triggered a massive sell-off Monday. On Wall Street, the Dow rose more than 500 points. The S&P 500 climbed more than 2% in afternoon trading after falling 3% on Monday. Economists blame Friday's dismal U.S. jobs report, high interest rates, and Middle East tensions for spooking investors, and warned there's no need to panic about a recession yet. Well, coming up, the latest on tensions between Israel and Iran when Faith Nation returns. Welcome back. Israelis are staying close to their bomb shelters tonight due to fear of an attack by Iran and its proxies. Earlier today, Hezbollah launched drones from Lebanon into Israel's Galilee region. 19 people were injured. Hezbollah said it was in retaliation for an Israeli strike that killed a low-level commander Monday. The Lebanese terror group and Iran are both vowing a bigger attack to avenge the deaths of Hamas's political leader and a top Hezbollah official last week.
There will be a response. There's no question about that. I do think that all parties concerned are going to want to try and do this in such a way that doesn't escalate completely out of control. But that doesn't mean that they will be able to do that.
Meanwhile, Israel continues its operations in Gaza and in the West Bank. Palestinian officials say Israeli forces killed 11 people. Israel described it as a counterterrorism operation. Hamas has also announced it has chosen Yahya Sinwar, the mastermind of the October 7th attacks, as the new leader of its political wing. Well, here in the U.S., parts of the southeast are bracing for historic flooding as Tropical Storm Debbie crawls through the region. The monster system slammed into Florida yesterday, killing at least 5. Lori Johnson has more.
Tropical Storm Debbie is expected to dump record-setting amounts of rain along coastal regions of Florida up through North Carolina, anywhere between 20 and 30 inches. That's more than the previous high in 2018 from Tropical Storm Florence. The historic city of Charleston, one of several preparing for what could be historic flooding as millions of people along the southeast deal with the slow-moving storm.
It may be that this is the most we've seen for a long time. Maybe. We don't know. So stay alert, stay tuned, and stay safe.
Residents and businesses are fortifying their properties with sandbags, while police are barricading streets in vulnerable areas. South of Charleston, a tornado damaging property as continued threats of twisters throughout the region persist. In Savannah, the mayor issuing a curfew, saying the deluge could mean, quote, obliteration for parts of the city.
This type of rain hovering over us, coming with the intensity that they tell us that it's coming, it's going to catch a whole lot of people by surprise.
Debbie made landfall along the Gulf Coast of Florida Monday as a Category 1 hurricane, packing sustained winds of 80 miles per hour. Storm surge and more than a foot of rain left streets underwater in places like Gainesville and Sarasota, where authorities declared flash flood emergencies. Tens of thousands of homes lost power. The Florida National Guard performed hundreds of high water rescues in flooded neighborhoods like this one, saving an elderly man and his dog. The storm is blamed for at least 5 deaths, including a 13-year-old Florida boy killed inside a mobile home hit by a falling tree.
The young man was asleep in his bedroom, and that's where the major impact was.
Near Tampa, police say the driver of this truck lost control of his tractor trailer and it plunged into the water below. Meanwhile, one boater is telling his survival story.
It's a washing machine, basically, is what it is in the Gulf.
Nathan Thomas and his friend were rescued off Florida's Gulf Coast in 20-foot waves. He said the storm came quicker than expected, and they lost the sail on their sailboat.
I knew that if the Coast Guard didn't get us, we probably had less than a 50% chance of surviving.
CBN's Operation Blessing is on the ground in Georgia and will begin making damage assessments of the hardest hit areas along the southeast coast. They are prepared to provide much needed relief to residents who will be struggling to deal with the damage after the storm moves through. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Thank you, Lori. Up next, a look at how Regent University is helping Israelis cope with the trauma of war. Welcome back. CBN Israel and Regent University are helping Israelis traumatized by October 7th and the ongoing war. One key, using therapy techniques learned by counselors during the Ukraine war with Russia. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has more on the collaboration.
After the October 7th massacre and ensuing war, Regent University involved its International Institute of Postgraduate Education in Ukraine to train Russian-speaking counselors in Israel. Together with CBN Israel and the Israel Trauma Coalition, they came up with a plan.
We've been feeling so connected to Israeli people in our suffering and your suffering, because it's very similar to what we experienced as a nation when we experienced barbarian attack on our democracy, on our freedom in the middle of the 21st century.
Here at the Maccabiah village, Jewish athletes from around the world come to train and compete in the Jewish Olympics. This week, dozens of Russian-speaking therapists have come for a different kind of training.
I'm faculty at Regent University and brought 2 colleagues with me from Ukraine who are trained to educate psychologists in immediate stabilization procedure, compassion fatigue, stress management.
Dr. Olia Zaporozhets says trauma from war is ongoing, and the Ukrainian professionals have current experience that's valuable in the Israeli situation.
We came to talk about how to help people going through stressful events, whether that's bombings or soldiers in a trench. That is, both civilian and military.
Psychologist Katerina Krylova says Israelis were eager to learn.
They've been gracious to us, and we appreciate it. Also, Regent University made this happen. Because of the war in Ukraine, they first came to teach us, and now we are able to come to Israel and share here.
Psychologist Ludmila Horodianko, who works with both Ukrainian children and adults, shared skills intended to quickly calm trauma victims.
And by using these techniques, a victim can be stabilized in just 20 minutes.
They also covered compassion fatigue, burnout from listening to the psychological trauma of others. Max Goldenberg heads the Israel Trauma Coalition, a leading agency addressing trauma among Israelis in both the southern and northern parts of the country. Goldenberg says 1.5 million people here feel the impact of the Iron Swords War, either because they lost family members or share connections with the hostages.
What we need right now is practical tools that can be implemented immediately tomorrow during their work with their patients, with the families and individuals that they support.
The Russian-speaking counselors immigrated to Israel decades ago. Some are helping those who fled the war in Ukraine, as well as Holocaust survivors, soldiers, and others. They credit the immediate stabilization procedure developed in Israel by psychiatrist Gary Quinn as their most valuable tool. It involves tapping one's own arms or shoulders or the table while focusing on the fact that they are safe now and not still in the traumatic situation. At the beginning of the Ukraine war, Quinn volunteered to first help therapists there, then train them to use the procedure.
All of the therapists themselves were at a very high level of stress because of the war and had to do the ISP first to calm them down.
During that time, he cites an incredible collaboration with Zaporozhye Regent University and CBN to modify and adjust the method.
The product came back in better condition, much more streamlined and much more effective and efficient in helping people.
The Israeli counselors felt enriched by what they learned.
It's really an excellent tool, and I'll use it a lot. It's not a treatment. It brings a person back to the place where he can function.
Zaporozhye says she's taking Israeli resilience back to Ukraine, as illustrated by the humorous saying Jewish people have about their celebrations and feast days.
Yeah, they were trying to kill us. We survived. Let's eat. It's great. I'm taking it home.
She believes the key is a love for country and fighting for the future to leave a better legacy for your children. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Kfar Maccabea, Israel.
Finally tonight, a New Hampshire woman found a treasure trove hidden inside her old barn house. Tony Pappas was in the process of restoring her home when she discovered 52 baseball cards from the 1930s and 1940s. They belonged to her late husband, Billy, who grew up in the home. He was also a Baseball Hall of Famer at the University of New Hampshire. The cards could be worth tens of thousands of dollars, but Pappas says they're worth much more than money to her. If she decides to sell, she says she'll donate the proceeds to the sports scholarship in her husband's name at the University of New Hampshire. And wow, they were in great shape. What a find. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless.